One of Logic's best features is its session players, which as the name implies are virtual drums, bass, and keyboard players that follow your instructions, the rhythm, and key of the track you're working on. They're basically speaking instrument tracks loaded with the virtual instruments. But what if I tell you that you can use them to control an analog synthesizer as well? In this video I will show you how. Make sure to stick around. What you're about to see is an excerpt from a live stream in which I am producing a track from start to finish using Logic Pro 12. With that being said, let's get into it. So, let's take a look at the whole routing first, okay? First and foremost, taking a look at Logic. What I'm gonna be doing first is inserting an instrument here that is gonna be the external instrument. I'm gonna set it to mono. And over here, this is the plugin that allows you to control an external synthesizer through the use of the MIDI sequences or the MIDI signals produced in Logic. Okay? So first, I'm going to select my MIDI interface. In this case, my MIDI interface is going to be my Machina MK3, and it's you should be able to see it somewhere here. Is this guy, okay? Right now, it's acting as a MIDI interface. I can even use the pads and the buttons over here and the encoders as MIDI controllers. Okay, CC. Now, with that done, now I'm going to select the channel. If I recall correctly, the Moog is being controlled through, is assigned to input 3, channel 3, let's see. I'm gonna bring the keyboard, Command K to bring the on-screen keyboard on Logic. No, it's not that one. Let me check, maybe number 2 or number 1. Oh, what? Oh, dumb. And the input is going to be input number 3 because that's where I have the Moog connected to. Now I'm going to turn on the input monitoring so we can actually hear. And now let's see to which channel I have it assigned to. There it is, channel number 1. So, if everything goes according to the plan, and if I press play, the sequence here is going to be played by my Moog. Let's see. Yes, it's working, but it's a freaking mess. Why is that? Let's take a look at the screen once again. Remember that we already played around with the slides. The thing is this, that information is being sent to my Moog. Still, the whole pitch wheel thing is still being sent to the Moog through MIDI. The issue is that the Moog, it's accepting that signal, but the way that this behaves, and this is out of my experimentation with this device, the Moog is not expecting, the signal being sent by Logic is basically speaking, expecting the mod wheel or the pitch wheel to reset itself as soon as the pitch wheel movement is over. On the Moog, that doesn't happen. You have to bring it back, dial it back to the starting point, to the center. That's why it's all over the place. See what happens if I remove the modulation coming from the pitch wheel, all the way down. Okay, now it sounds much more like it, right? It's now following the pattern being played by the computer. But what's the point of this? LFO. We're going to be using the internal LFO to control an external synthesizer using the matrix on the Moog. Because we're going to be sending MIDI information through this cable, and then it's going to be outputted as freaking CV control information from the matrix, allowing me to control all of the different parameters available to me on the matrix through the use of my Logic session. Yeah, ridiculous, I know, but it's possible and it's gonna work. Let me show you. First and foremost, once again, introducing the mighty patch cables. Here, we're gonna be going to the Moog, and the Moog itself has one of the different routing outputs here is called assign. The assign function will allow us to output the signal coming out of my logic session, and will allow me to put it or to force it to control a different parameter. Let's say the position of my filter. Let's try it here. Bada bing, bada bam. And if I press play, something should happen. Of course, nothing happened. Why is that? Easy. I need to assign the output of this LFO over here on Logic to a command, a CC command, a number, that it's going to be understood by my Moog coming out of the, getting into the Moog through MIDI, so it can route it to the assigned output. So how to do that? The Moog expects signal and allows you to route signal coming from channel 1, 3, 4, and 7, if I recall correctly. So I'm gonna go to Logic, I'm gonna click over here, and I'm gonna assign the target, the CC target, to be 7, CC 7. And if everything goes according to the plan, and I hope it does, as soon as I press play, the sound of the Moog will be affected by the output of the assign function, and will be doing something similar to this, cutting off, moving the cutoff point while the track's playing. So let's see. It worked!
Of course!
Indeed, it worked. How? As I said before, the Moog is already expecting this particular kind of signal, which is CC7, 4, and 1, if I recall correctly, and 3, I think as well, to be routed through that particular output on the system. By doing that, I'm going to be outputting the information that is actually, the LFO on Logic is outputted through this output into wherever I want. So let's say that now we're going to change, let's say something a little bit more interesting. Let's see if I can control the width of the pulse modulator. Yeah, let's VCO mod, which is this guy. So let's see. It's working, but it's a mess. That's not necessarily a useful parameter to control through the use of CC. But let's play around with this. Now let's go for something a bit more musical. So I'm gonna keep the track playing, so we can start to experiment with the Moog and also the LFO. Let's first do some housekeeping. I'm gonna name correctly my channel here. This is gonna be Moog MIDI. Why is that? Since this is an actual virtual instrument, the sound is actually being tracked through the interface, my converter over here in the studio. The problem with this is that if I don't save this guy, or if I don't record this guy, either recording on top of this channel, or if I don't create a channel strip to which I'm going to be recording the sound coming out of the analog synthesizer, as the moment in which I print, chances are that I'm gonna have this as a blank. Okay, but more than that, once we reach a much more a closer to the end stage for this exercise. Now that we understand that, let's play around with this. We got naming conventions correctly. Let's align this to be a 100. Why? Because we're going to be, with phase, we change the moment in which this thing gets started. I'm going to use, let's just out of my OCD, something like this. So I like it to be kind of at the very point of, like that. Good, it was 100%. Good. With that, I'm going to be outputting, and that's actually very interesting. Look at this. The synchronization function is very important because depending on which one you select, the modulation is going to be synced to that. What does that mean? If we go for chords, you're going to see that the changes, the modulation, I think is visible to you also as well, is based on the positioning of the chords. It's following that rhythm. If I go for something different, and let me select number 1, so it's much more, this is easier. Look, the ramp up and the ramp down gets started at the very point of the beginning of each of the different chords over here. Then if I go for bits, it's going to follow the track itself. That's why we, instead of controlling the oscillation through a number, we're actually controlling it through intervals. Then free is going to be basically similar to what you do when you are playing with a delay that is not synced to the tempo of a track. It's going to be by ear. Then random, well, the name implies it. It's just going to be randomly moving around. Function useful? Yes, of course. So first, let's try it with bits because it's gonna be the most audible and the easier one to get used to. So I'm gonna press play and we're gonna be experimenting with the synthesizer. Here we go. Not bad. It's starting to get a little bit of a groove. Let's see. I'm going to bring back the rest of the mix and let's blend it in together. Here we go. Kind of easy. It's not that I don't like it. I simply think it's a little bit too much. Not out of the sound itself or the sequence itself, but I think the arrangement is starting to get convoluted. It's not that big of a deal if I find a spot for it to be a little bit more rhythmical rather than melodic. So let's try that out. I'm gonna go once again to Logic, and in here, let's see. I'm gonna go for details, not main. We haven't played around with this. We can change the actual order of the notes. So let's go for something. This is kind of highly syncopated, let's see. There are plenty of moments in which everything kind of clashes. It's a little bit busy. Again, this is a moment of experimentation. Let's see. We can try something different. How about if we change the range? Right now we're dealing with a very much melodic range. So I'm going to put it somewhere here. Lower register. Let's see. A little bit better, but still, I don't know if it truly fits this section. I'm gonna try this out similarly, but I'm gonna move it to the second idea we got here, the second arrangement section. Let's see. This is a completely different chord progression. It should be a slightly different. Yeah, it could be half time. Yeah, we can try that one. Let's see. Let me first try this out. Maybe this arrangement or this kind of pattern is going to be a little bit less cluttered in this section. Let's see. Starting to sound a little bit more musical. I like it better in this section. Now, I don't know if I am fully convinced with using this kind of pattern, probably due to the range of the notes being played or triggered in this particular section, because I like the melody. It's starting to sound kind of, not sexy, but kind of introspective. I know, probably because it's due to the chord progression itself. This section is a little bit more kind of more interesting sounding rather than just having this kind of chromatic tag to it. So let's see. I'm gonna move around the range because probably it's a little bit too low. Let's try something an octave higher, a few octaves higher. Let's see, C3 to C5. Let's see. That sounds good. I like it.